Hi all. In my last movie I was talking about rigging up a character and preparing it for a walk cycle. In this movie I'm going to actually walk through, a walk cycle. Uh, just a reference, I'm inside the Goon character, which is inside scene 1. If you're new to Flash, remember that there are these little breadcrumbs up along the top. You can always tell where you are. A lot of people who are new to Flash will get nervous because the timeline seems to change, and just always check up here and see what timeline you're in. So right here on scene 1, notice that we have just this guy walking or floating across the stage. What I'm going to do now is edit him. And we're going to just get him to do all of his moves inside one spot here. That's essentially where we're going to head for this. So I'm going to build this from this one place, and we'll work out from there. So again, I'm inside the Goon character, and we can tell because we have all of these extra layers, and on the layers is a symbol for each one of these shapes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this character posed up for the first part of the walk cycle. So I'm going to just have his legs spread apart, and we're going to have him take 2 strides. He'll start with his right leg back. He'll step forward with his right leg and then step again so that he ends with his right leg back. So that essentially it creates a loop. The whole time we're going to have him kind of stay in one spot. He's just going to float here, and we're going to allow the tween on the stage to take him across. Okay, so that's the plan. So first step, all I'm going to do is make sure I have the free transform tool set. And the other thing I want to do here is I want to, if I click on the guy and start to rotate, you might notice it kind of is clicking around. That's because it's snapping, and since I'm rendering this at a pretty low resolution because of this movie that I'm making, I noticed I don't see the little magnet in the tool panel here. So here's a quick easy way to get there. I'm going to just click the double arrows up top. It collapses it into a little tool icon. If I pop that, it pops out to the side. Now I can see all the tools, and here's that little magnet. I'm going to turn that off, and then I'm just going to pop this back to where we were. Now if I come around and rotate this, notice it's much smoother. Okay, so I'm going to just put him in the first position. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so that I can get nice and close. Let's see. And at this point, we can see more stage and less of the timeline. So really what you're shooting for this beginning frame is just making sure that this back leg, which is the right leg, is back. You'll notice what I'm doing is when I select those 3 graphics, I get a pivot point to represent the whole set. So that's okay. I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to move this back. And then I'm going to rotate the foot here. And see, that pivot makes it kind of handy for us. I can get the ankle rotated down. I'm going to also lower the leg a little bit, along with the hips. If I can get the hips here. Let's see. We'll just lower the leg, and then I'll get the hips in a second. In fact, I'm going to take this back. Let's talk about some goals. I should have done this first. One of my goals here is that these feet stay in the same position, relative in terms of vertically, the entire time. So we don't want his right foot to wander up and down, and we don't want his left foot to wander up and down. It should stay kind of smooth, except for on the passing pose where the foot's actually in the air. So one thing I'm going to do here, instead of doing that rotation, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to just click on this foot, and I'm going to move it back. And I'm holding down Shift while I do that so that it stays nice and right where it was. Let's just make sure. I'm going to just undo that. Let me try it again. There we go. And Shift should be able to, keeps wanting to align. Well, I'm going to just set this up so initially it just stays right there. Okay. Going to do that with the right foot too. We'll just slide that forward a bit. And now I just need to get in the process of bringing everything down. I'm going to move his hips down a little bit. Makes sense because he's got his legs spread apart, so his hips are going to drop a little bit. Now I'll take his leg, and let's rotate this. And then we'll also move the leg down so that it fits in here. Let me see, I want to check something. I'm going to turn off snap align and snap to guides. I really think those are starting to get in the way here, so yeah, good. Now I can just kind of float that into position. Let me rotate this out just a little bit more. Okay, so we get that leg set. Same thing here. Going to select these guys, move the pivot point up. We'll probably have to get this in here. I'm going to grab the hand. Just get these legs down. You know what? I'm going to hide the arms for this first part. So we can just look at just the lower body. That makes life easier. Okay. So get these guys into position. And you know, I'm going to rotate this foot a little bit and get it so that it's hitting right on the top. This is our initial pose, so we'll just base everything off of this. Alright, so that's the beginning. By the way, I'm going to save this as, and I'm going to have it Goon walks. Alright, I dropped his hip down, so notice that his shirt and his head and all that stuff needs to come down too. So I'm going to just grab these guys now. And in fact, let me show the arms now. I'm going to go ahead and select all those guys. Easy way to do this, I'm just going to click on the first, come down to where I want to select, hold down Shift. Okay, that grabs all of those. I'm going to just move the whole body, whole group down a little bit. So we can see that from his initial position, he's dropped a couple of inches comparatively. And again, we might make some adjustments. This leg seems a little high, so I'm going to drop the leg down. I'm going to rotate this a little bit. And slide that back foot back a little further. All right. Cool. Get our initial first position. For the sake of speed in this video, I'm not going to do his arms right now. We'll do his arms later. Let me get this foot just pushed out a little bit. I'd really like him to be striding forward as much as a zombie's going to stride forward, I guess. And you can see those extra little lines that I did on the cutout are helping here. It's helping the figure stay pretty together. Okay, so we get that initial position. I'm going to save my work. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward And for the sake of what we're doing here today, I'm going to just have this be 24 frames out. We could always expand or contract this if we want the walk to go slower or faster. I'll show you how to do that. But for right now, I'm just going to select all of these frames on frame 24. How to do this? There's a couple ways. So first of all, notice I'm clicking right before the dark frame. The dark frame represents frame 25. So I'm just clicking on the frame right in front of that. And you can do this just by holding down Shift and then clicking on the last frame. That selects all of the frames. You can click and drag a range of frames. If it doesn't work the first time, try it again. Flash is somewhat temperamental, but that's okay. So I'm going to have those guys selected, and then I'm just going to insert a keyframe. F6 inserts a keyframe. Basically just copies that pose from frame 1. And the reason we want to do that is why go through all the hassle of trying to repose it again at this end. So I'm just going to have just copy those frames out. Now I'm going to come down to frame 12 here. And in frame 12, I'm going to again just select all of these middle frames, just holding down Shift and selecting all of the frames. And again, I'm going to press F6. So now I've made the keyframes in 3 places, right? Boom, boom, and boom. Nothing's really changed. The only difference is I'm going to move those legs. So that right leg is going to become the front leg here, and the left leg is going to go to the back. So I'm going to, again, collapse this down. Make sure that you're on frame 12 when you're working on this. It says down here, frame 12. It doesn't really matter if it's frame 12 or 13 or whatever. The key thing is that you want to be in your middle frames. You're not accidentally changing your front frame or your last frame. You're in the middle frame. All right, so I'm going to drag this down again. And actually, I should have hidden the arms, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And let's hide the arms here too. Great. Now, again, my goal for these middle frames is just to reposition. So now I'm going to select these guys. And if I can get the foot there, there we go. I'm going to move its pivot point. Again, you have to adjust the pivot point when you select all of them because you get kind of a universal pivot point there. I'm going to just slide this forward. And then select this foot here. Bring it down. Let's move it into position. I'm just kind of checking to see that that foot doesn't drift up or down too much. It looks like it came down a little bit, so I'm going to bring it up just a tad. There we go. So that's nice and in position. I'm going to have, actually, I'm going to move it forward just a little bit so it looks like he's really stepping forward. I'm holding down Shift while I drag it just so that it stays level. Let's rotate this into position. Okay, good. So that's the right leg. Now we're going to do the left leg and move it back. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll just take this foot, holding down Shift, and I'm sliding it back, kind of visualizing where that's going to be. Here's the previous frame. So I'm just kind of anticipating it to be a little bit in front of where the right foot was. Because if you look at his hips, he's kind of in a 3/4 view. We're not seeing him completely from the side. So I think with that in mind, I'm going to just move this guy just forward just a little bit. Again, I'm holding Shift just to double check it. All right. This might seem kind of weird right now, but bear with me. Okay, so we've got that. I'm going to select his thigh and calf. Move the pivot point. Rotate this around. There we go. And you can see here there's a little bit of awkwardness. His butt, I didn't draw that line all the way down, so I might make an adjustment there. Might just position this so that it's kind of fine-tuned and lines up okay. We have some advantages here because the knee is behind this other leg. But why don't I go ahead, I'm going to rotate this and just move it down a little bit. This is where overshooting those lines can be a little handy because you can get your guy lined up and see if it works. Okay, so good. We have now, it appears to be a passing pose. So we have his beginning, I'm sorry, not a passing pose, the opposite stride. We have his beginning, we have the next part. His feet seem like they're just a little bit behind. That looks good. And then they pop back. Okay, so we have the beginnings of this. Now the next part is we're going to lift these up and do passing poses. Passing pose is just where the character goes up. The leg, one leg passes the other leg. The height of the character is at its height because the hip rises up as the leg straightens out. So the character is going to have kind of a bob up and down. But the key thing here is first we start off, I come back, I'm going to select all these frames again. So, and I'm on frame 6 here, and I'm just going to press F6. That keyframes everything and freezes it where it is. Go ahead and bring this down. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead, as he's walking, his right foot's going to come up and pass in the air. Okay, so we're going to start with that left leg. I'm going to get the left foot underneath the hips. So kind of right between the two feet that you see here. Then I'm going to go ahead and get this leg so that it's fairly horizontal. I'm sorry, fairly vertical. The whole thing is going to be shifted. So it's going to rotate like this. And then we're going to raise up this leg. Go ahead and just raise that up until it kind of matches up there. And then let me raise the rest of the torso. I'm going to select over these guys. There we go. And I'm holding down Shift so that I can select the hip if I can. If not, you know what? I'm just going to raise it up. Thing here I don't want you to worry about is just get in there and just get them into position. That's the beauty of what we're doing here, is we're just getting him into position. Don't worry how you do it. So for instance, if you're just selecting like I'm doing here and moving into position, so be it. Okay, so we get that stuff and we're all good to go. So now he's gone up considerably. If we check, notice that he's lifted up. Now we could do some other animation. If we had him slowly raise his back up, maybe he does that. But for right now, I'm just checking to see that he's actually elevating up. And we're going to copy those frames in a second. But anyway, now we're going to work on the pass here. So I'm going to select the front leg, all of its items. Go ahead and move it up because the hip is lifted it up in the air. Go ahead and move the pivot point for this. We're going to crank this around so that the knee's in the air. I'm going to hold down Shift and click on the thigh again. That deselects it. So now I have the knee, or I'm sorry, the calf and the foot. Rotate this around. And really lift that leg up in the air. Okay. Get this into position. All right, so we have the leg in the air here. There you go. So you can kind of see that the pass is working. You can see there's a little bit of junk here. I think that stuff got left over. Yep. Let me, before I get too far along, I'm going to just see if I can I get rid of this stuff. This is unrelated to the items, talked about some extra stuff being in the movie last time, and I'm noticing it here. Might as well see if we can get rid of it before too far along. Okay, so we've got this. Before I forget, I should raise up the arms too. So I'm going to make the arms visible so that we can lift them up. And I'll just select them. So I'm holding down Shift. And actually, if you hold down Command, I just want to get these guys too. Don't want the torso. I'm going to Shift click on the torso, make it go away. Great, now we can lift up the arms. And I guess that would be kind of a funny walk cycle if his arms stayed the same as he moved up and down. But yeah, there. Now his arms are kind of lifting up with his body. All right. Cool. So far, so good. Good. So now the next trick is we might as well take this pose because we have hip elevation the same. We have his arms taken care of. So what we really need is to just swap out the feet. So I'm going to copy the keyframes here. This is kind of a fun trick. So I'm going to select the first frame, hold down Shift, click on the last keyframe down at the bottom, right click on the group, and choose Copy Frames. Over on frame 18, let's see, is that 18? Yep, it is. 18, I'm going to hold down Shift, click on the last frame, right click, and I'm just going to paste frames. Now that brings that in. And then I think what it did, I think I messed myself up. Notice I got some extra keyframes here. Let's see what's going on. So that's got that pose. So I don't want that pose. Frame 19 came over too. So let me see if I can just get rid of those. So I'm selecting the first frame, Shift selecting down to the last. And on this one, I don't want to remove frames because I want the whole thing to take the same amount of time. So I'm just going to choose Clear Keyframe. That gets rid of that keyframe. So here we go. So passing pose down. So now what we need to do is just reverse the legs. Again, I'm going to hide the arms so we don't have to worry about them. Let's move this down. And in this one, I'm going to go ahead and adjust it. So this leg is going to be down all the way. I'll just have it be somewhere around here. It was rotated a little. I'm going to bring that up. And we can check this. There we go. That looks like it's about the same. His toe is actually peeks out above the line a little bit, so I can put that in. Okay. Yeah. There. Now that foot looks like it's in the right position. And you know what? Maybe get this other foot. We're going to get these guys up into the air. Rotate this up. Select these guys. Again, just set that pivot point. Rotate over. And we'll just see how this works. And then I'm selecting the front leg here. Actually, let me just select the calf. Rotate this. and then the calf and the thigh. Get that into position. Maybe move that just a bit. Okay. All right, so here's the beginning. He does a pass. You know, that pass, I'm going to just adjust the knee. Notice the knee's peeking out a little bit. I'm going to just fix that. This is where, you know, do some cleanup here. It'll make it a little easier down the road. Maybe rotate this just a little bit more. And get this guy to come down a little bit. All right. Maybe this one rotated a little bit too. We'll see. Sometimes what happens if you do too much of a rotation here, it'll actually run into the ground as it's dragging along. So we'll see if that works. But the key thing here is we now have our walk pose.